The scream cut through the sound of traffic like a knife through glass. It was sharp, terrified, and desperate, the kind of sound that makes even strangers stop mid-step. On a quiet suburban street in Tulsa, the mid-afternoon sun blazed down as an elderly woman clutched her purse to her chest. Her trembling hands were no match for the masked man who lunged toward her, yanking it away with a gun glinting in his hand. She cried out, stumbling backward, her knees buckling as she fell beside the gas station curb. Her grocery bag tore open, apples rolling across the concrete. And just a few feet away, leaning against their parked motorcycles, 4 men in black leather vests turned their heads. The patches on their backs read, "Hell's Angels." For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Then, everything changed. But before we get to that moment, if you believe in kindness, courage, and second chances, then please take a second to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Every story we tell reminds the world that good hearts still exist, even in the most unexpected places. Her name was Eleanor Marks, 74 years old, retired schoolteacher, widow of a local war veteran. Every Tuesday afternoon, she walked 3 blocks to Miller's Diner, a small red and white cafe where the staff knew her by name. It was her routine, her little joy, her escape from the silence of an empty house. She always sat by the window, ordered a slice of apple pie, and talked with the waitress, who reminded her of her late daughter. But that day, the world had different plans. As Eleanor stepped out of the diner, purse over her shoulder, she didn't notice the dark sedan creeping slowly down the street. She waved to the waitress, smiled at the group of bikers parked nearby, and started her walk home. She'd made it barely 10 steps when a man in a black hoodie jumped out of the car, gun in hand. "Give me the bag, old lady," he barked. Her heart froze. For a second, she didn't move. She thought, hoped, it was a cruel joke. Then the man grabbed her arm, twisting it hard. Pain shot up to her shoulder. She screamed, clutching the purse tighter, not because of the money, but because it held her late husband's photograph and a locket her daughter had given her before she died. The man yanked harder. The strap snapped. She fell to the ground as the robber ran off, sprinting down the street, gun still in hand. That was when the sound of heavy boots echoed behind her. The first biker to reach her was Maddox Hale, a grizzled man in his early 50s with a salt and pepper beard and tattoos curling down both arms. His vest bore the title Road Captain, and his presence radiated authority, not fear, but power controlled by purpose. Behind him were Ryder, Cole, and Dean, all part of his crew. They weren't the kind of men most people would call heroes. They'd lived rough lives, made hard choices. But when they heard that scream, instinct kicked in, the kind born of respect, not reputation. Maddox knelt beside the trembling woman, helping her up gently. "Ma'am, are you hurt?" he asked, his voice steady but his jaw clenched tight. Her voice broke as she pointed down the street. He took my purse. He had a gun." The old woman's voice wavered, but her eyes still burned with shock and disbelief. Maddox's gaze followed her trembling hand, and he saw the men, sprinting past a gas station corner, trying to escape toward the main road. He didn't need to say a word. The roar of motorcycle engines filled the air. Within seconds, the bikers were on their bikes, throttles twisting, tires screeching against the pavement. The quiet neighborhood erupted in thunder. Eleanor stood frozen, one hand clutching her chest as the sound of Harley engines roared to life, a wall of noise, power, and vengeance. The robber darted between parked cars, glancing back in panic as the bikers closed in. One of them, Ryder, veered left and cut off his escape toward the alley. Cole came from the other side, blocking him in. The men stumbled, tried to raise the gun, but Maddox was already off his bike, moving faster than a man his age should be able to. With one swift move, he grabbed the robber's wrist and slammed it against a brick wall. The gun clattered to the ground. "Please, man, I didn't mean," the robber stammered, but Maddox's glare silenced him. "You pointed a gun at someone's grandmother," he said coldly. "You meant it." Cole picked up the purse from the pavement, brushing off the dust before handing it back to Maddox. Inside, untouched, were Eleanor's wallet, her keys, and the faded photo of her husband in uniform. Maddox looked at it for a moment, then back at the robber, shaking his head slowly. "Not today," he muttered. They didn't hurt him, they didn't need to. They called the local police, turned him in, and waited until the squad car pulled away. But the look on the officers' faces said it all. they knew the biker crew had done what most people wouldn't dare to. When Maddox and his crew returned to Eleanor, she was still standing by the diner window, hands clasped tightly together. As soon as she saw her purse, tears filled her eyes. Maddox handed it over gently, careful not to meet her gaze too long, almost embarrassed by the emotion in the air. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, voice trembling. "You don't need to say anything, ma'am," Maddox replied softly. "Just be safe. The world's not all bad, some of us still listen when someone calls for help." The crew started their engines again, preparing to leave. But before they could, Eleanor reached out and placed her frail hand on Maddox's arm. "My husband was a soldier," she said, her eyes glistening. "He would have said the same thing." Maddox gave a faint smile. "Then he was a good man." As the bikes rolled away, the afternoon sunlight glinted off their chrome, fading into the distance. The townsfolk who had watched in silence finally stepped out from the diner, some clapping softly, others just nodding in quiet respect. Eleanor stood there for a long moment, holding her purse close to her chest, watching the road where the bikers disappeared, the same road where fear had turned into faith in less than 10 minutes. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness can come from anywhere, even from those the world often misunderstands, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Your support helps us keep spreading stories that prove humanity still has hope. Before you go, tell us in the comments. What's the kindest or most unexpected act of courage you've ever witnessed? Because sometimes, all it takes is one act of bravery to remind the world that good still wins.